for joining us on Legacy Markets. This show is centered on finance and the economy, and tonight we want to talk briefly about some of the key issues currently affecting the country. Today, we are talking about sugar. The sugar industry is one of the largest contributors to the country's agricultural output. In 2022, the Belize sugar industry produced approximately 179,000 metric tons of sugar, a minor growth of 0.9% from the previous year. The controlled retail price of brown sugar is 50 cents per pound and 75 cents per pound for white sugar. In September, reports surfaced about a shortage of brown and white sugar in Belize, gaining significant attention in October, where the sugar shortage was particularly pronounced in the western and southern areas of the country. Reports highlight the challenge of controlling the volume of sugar crossing borders through various channels, including distributors, grocery stores, and both locals and foreigners. To gain a deeper insight into the impact of this sugar shortage, we have in our studio Dr. Philip Castillo, and joining us on a Zoom call is Mr. Sean Chavarria, Director of Finance at BSI ASR. So welcome, gentlemen.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks for having me.
So the first question is this the first incident where a sugar shortage has occurred in Belize?
No, it isn't. I've been with the company 18 years now, and this is the third time I've encountered this situation during my time here. And when it's been observed, it's because of two things. One, we either see sugar prices in our neighboring countries is much higher than it is in Belize, or two, or the sugarcane crops in our neighboring countries saw a significant reduction and therefore a shortage in these markets. And so what we're seeing in this year is actually a combination of both factors, particularly in Mexico. Mexico saw a significant reduction in their crop. Their average is around 5.8 million. This past crop, it reduced to around 5 million tons of sugar. And so that's a massive reduction in their production. And what it resulted in is a significant increase in sugar prices across the border. Now you combine that with the fact that in Belize, we have a price control for both plantation white and brown sugar. And those control prices are significantly below what is obtained in the neighboring countries. So it creates this incentive for traders to come here to Belize to buy the sugar that is cheaper, and even with the additional transportation costs, they can make a profit by selling it in these markets. So we're seeing it this year. We've seen it around 2014-15 and around 2011. At that time, the price of sugar had increased as well, and the prices in Belize were much lower than the market prices. So it's not the first time we've seen it in Belize. And I think unless we change the way the pricing structure that currently exists in Belize for sugar, until that changes, we will continue to see this happen in the future.
Okay, thank you so much for your insight. And you mentioned about people crossing the borders and purchasing our sugar here because it is a bit more economical to purchase in the country of Belize. But what is the extent of the problem of cross-border purchases contributing to the documented sugar scarcity in Belize, and which districts will experience a greater impact from the shortage?
Where we initially heard the reports first was in the western and southern district, and that makes sense because of its proximity to the western border with Guatemala. But even more in the last few weeks and the last couple of months, we've seen that push up to the Belize district, and now even in two northern districts, where in shops in Corozal and Orange Rock are also complaining that they can't get the sugar. So again, it just shows you that where demand exceeds supply and there is sufficient margin for people to make a profit, they will find the product. They will find a way to get their hands on that product because the trade is lucrative for them. As a comparison, an equivalent 25 kilo bag that we sell here is 38 Belize dollars. It currently fetches a price of around $88 in Mexico. And so you have a margin of about $50 per bag to make by selling it across the border. So that's a lucrative amount for traders, and that is what causes the incentive for them to come here, because they can buy it so much cheaper and then sell it for a higher profit across the border. So the underlying problem is that we have a price control for a product which is selling well below the market price. And the one that is even more pronounced is brown sugar. You mentioned that the price control is 50 cents. Actually, it's lower. The price control is 39 cents. So what we sell the sugar for here at the mill is 34 cents. But I know in most places in Belize, the minimum price that you will see brown sugar being sold for is around 50 cents per pound. And so that shows you the extent of the margins that people are making for brown sugar. White, yes, is more closer in terms of what we sell it here at 66 cents versus the retail control price of 75 cents. So there's a smaller margin to play with. But now that white sugar is selling for much higher across the border, then even white sugar, you're seeing shortage in the marketplace.
Okay, so you mentioned supply and demand. So would it be feasible to just increase the supply of sugar to meet the local demand?
It's not that simple, because if you think about it, Mexico is a market of 5 million tons of sugar, and the two mills combined in Belize produce around 180,000 sugar. So that is a massive market that we have across the border that is, in a sense, dragging the sugar. So producing more won't fix the problem. What has to be fixed is the price control that currently exists. In the case of brown sugar, the price has been fixed for 23 years. I mean, that's a really long time. Inflation has been cumulative over that time, maybe close to 40%, yet the price of sugar in Belize hasn't moved for 23 years. The last increase for plantation white was done in January of 2016. And in that year, when the price was adjusted, you saw a reduction of around 30% in sales to the market. So that shows you the extent at that time of how much sugar was probably leaking across the borders, because again, the price here in Belize was so much lower than neighboring countries. So we do see what has taken place before. When there is a correction in price, it stops that leakage that occurs, and then the market becomes more balanced. It's more reflective of what the true demand for sugar is in Belize.
Okay, so what support is needed to make sure that the market is balanced and to address the issue of sugar scarcity?
I think definitely the price needs to reflect what are the market conditions and more closer to market prices. And in the case of white and brown sugar, they continue to be well below market prices, and brown sugar much even lower than raw sugar, which is not a value-added product. So that is the first thing that needs to take place. The prices need to be increased so that it's more reflective of the true market price for the product. Things that we can do here from the factory end, but again would need government support, is that we could have the ability to package the sugar in retail. And if we package it in retail with our labeling that says it's produced by BSI, produced in Belize, that makes it more difficult for the traders to come here and purchase that sugar and sell it across the border. Because if it's one thing buying it in industrial, which they can use in different processes, but it's another thing buying it in a retail. You can't buy this retail sugar and then go across the border and sell it in the supermarkets, because that's when it will, in a sense, be picked up by the authorities. So packaging in retail is another solution, but again, to facilitate that, the price control would have to be removed so that we can recover the cost of the additional packaging to make it increase the value added component of the product.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Chavarria, and I, for one, am definitely learning a lot about the sugar industry. Unfortunately, we do need to take a break right now, but when we come back, we will have a conversation with Dr. Philip Castillo, lecturer at the University of Belize, to give us an economic analysis of the sugar situation. So, don't go away.